Good afternoon. I'm Connor Villa coming at you from the Channel 6 Canadian newsroom station. Today we'll be going to Ontario Bay, Ontario to talk with two prestigious environmental scientists, Thomas Candy Kirby and Katie Phil Scherzer. These two have been traveling across the Northern Hemisphere looking into two specific species in the Boreal Forest. The Boreal Forest, for which us Canadians call home, consists of cold winters, little precipitation, moose, mountain pine beetles, and the keystone species, the snow hare. The snow hare has a high reproductive rate, and they are prey for a wide range of predators in the area. Without them, these predators could not be supported and many would die off. That would have adverse effects on the whole ecosystem. Populations like this and others of the forest occur across the world at 50 and 60 degrees north, making them metapopulations or populations that are separated by land but have the same species. Thomas has been studying the moose for the past 10 years. The moose is a case-selected species, which means that they only produce few offspring. Today, Thomas will talk about their population, their distribution, behavior, lifespan, and lastly, their appetite. Katie has been doing the same for the mountain pine beetle, an R-selected species that reproduces in an abundance of offspring.
Hi, I'm Thomas Kirby, a famous scientist. In the Boreal Forest, a prominent case-selected species is the moose. Moose are plentiful in the Boreal, and though they've been declining in population size, they are still labeled as a species of least concern in terms of extinction. Moose eat plants and grasses, and they compete for food with small herbivores from the area, but there is usually enough vegetation and not enough animals that in the forest there is not competitive exclusion, and all current herbivores have had success in finding the right resources. There's an estimated 1.4 million moose that live in the Boreal, and they are not very densely populated because they don't live in herds, and so they are very scattered from each other. They are distributed very heavily in North America, especially Canada and the northern US. But they are also found in the northern countries of Europe and Asia, such as Finland, Norway, Sweden, the Czech Republic, and Russia. They follow a random distribution pattern, as moose are solitary animals that do not form herds or packs. The sex ratio of moose populations varies depending on the location of the moose, but overall there are slightly more females than males, with a ratio of roughly 52% female. In Norway, in the past 30 years, there have been many more females being born than males, and this reflects an area of varying sex ratio from that of the total world population of moose. The average moose is 9.4 years old, and they live up to 15 to 25 years old. Lately, availability of food, a density-dependent factor, has decreased as moose populations have grown too large and there have not been enough new vegetation, which they eat, to keep up. This has caused a small decline in the population.
We're making
a video.
We're making a video.
This has caused a small decline in the population and represents a population overshoot, but not enough to cause any worry for extinction. And this has only occurred in small subsets of the population. If anything, this showed the carrying capacity of the Boreal Forest for the moose populations, which is roughly 1.5 to 1.6 million, very close to the current population. In terms of density-independent factors, there have not been recent major climatic changes or natural disasters that have altered the moose populations. Thank the Lord. In ideal conditions, a female moose can have 3 to 4 offspring, so the intrinsic growth rate of the species is pretty high for a case-selected species at 1.07, as the offspring each have a 95% survival rate. That's it for the moose. Back to you, Connor.
Thanks, Thomas. Now to Katie live.
Hi, I'm Katie Scherzer, another fellow famous scientist reporting to you live from the great outdoors. In the Boreal Forest, a R-selected species is the mountain pine beetle. This species displays intrinsic growth rate and does not typically remain near their carrying capacity. In western North America, the outbreak of this beetle destroyed wide areas of lodgepole pine forest. In the 2000s, the beetle expanded its range to Canada, invading a new habitat east of the Rocky Mountains in northeastern British Columbia and northern Alberta. Beginning in 2013, 264,000 acres of trees were infected by these beetles. This was smaller than the 1.15 million acres affected in 2008 because the beetle already killed off the wood trees. When an outbreak occurred in the 1930s, the environmental variability in population density affected the local population growth. The mountain pine beetle tends to evenly distribute. There's a female-based sex ratio with a rate of 2 to 1. The density-dependent factors is the availability of trees, predators in the forest, and disease. The Boreal Forest has not undergone any recent natural catastrophes, thus the density-independent factors do not affect the beetle. Space is the major limiting factor for the beetle. Due to the beetle's high reproductive rate, not many of the beetles survive. The intrinsic growth rate of the mountain pine beetle is 1.16. 1.16 is the number of offspring that will also survive. Unusual hot, dry summers and mild winters in forests filled with lodgepole pine throughout the region during the past decade have led to an epidemic. The mountain pine beetle is constantly increasing due to unknown causes. In addition, too many trees make it less likely for the trees to repel attacks by insects. Outbreaks frequently occur after drought periods that have weakened defense periods. When weather is favorable for several consecutive years, severe outbreaks can occur in high elevation stands of whitebark and limber pine. The beetles are extremely densely populated as they are rapidly growing. Thanks for listening.
All right, folks, that's it for today. Thank you for watching our segment on the Boreal Forest. Next is Larry with the weather.